Today, we are going to be tackling something that's probably been on a lot of your minds, the end of support for Windows 10.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It is a big one. Yeah. October 14th, 2025. Less than a year from now, Microsoft is cutting off support. So you're probably wondering, what does that even mean? What does that mean for me, my computer? What am I going to do? We've got a ton of information to go through today.
We do.
Articles, analyses.
Microsoft statements.
User reactions, all that stuff.
Opinions from industry experts.
The whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
But our mission here is to really just help you understand what's going on here. What are the risks? What are the opportunities? So you can make the best decision for your Windows 10 future.
It's going to be a big change for a lot of people. I mean, especially because it seems like a lot of people are still using Windows 10.
Exactly. That's the crazy thing. Over 66% of users are still on Windows 10 as of late 2024. So why is Microsoft doing this?
So to understand this, we kind of have to look at Microsoft's modern lifecycle policy and how they're managing the lifespan of their products. Okay. So they're going to support a product for a certain amount of time, and then they're going to shift focus to the new hotness.
The new stuff.
In this case, it's Windows 11. And this policy lets them kind of streamline updates, allocate resources more efficiently, and, basically nudge people towards upgrading.
So Windows 10 by 2025 will be over a decade old, which in tech years, it's got to be like 1 million years old.
Yeah, basically ancient history at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a strategic move on their part.
Yeah.
But you know what? A lot of us don't care about corporate strategy. We just want to know how this affects us. Like, what does this mean for me, the everyday Windows 10 user?
Right. And that's a valid question. And probably the biggest concern is security.
Okay.
So once support ends for Windows 10, you won't get those critical security updates anymore. So as new vulnerabilities and threats emerge, it's almost like your computer is a house with all the doors and windows unlocked.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And sure, you might have your alarm system that's like your antivirus software.
Right.
But that can't protect you from every possible danger.
So we're talking becoming a sitting duck for hackers and malware.
That is unfortunately a risk. And it's not just security either. We also need to think about compatibility.
Okay.
So think about all the software and hardware you use every day, your favorite apps, your printer, even external hard drives. So as developers shift their focus to Windows 11, you might find that some of these things just stop working correctly with Windows 10.
Oh, gosh.
You can imagine like your go-to photo editing software suddenly crashing, or your printer just refusing to print.
I'm already sweating a little bit.
Yeah.
So we got potential security nightmares. We got compatibility chaos. Anything else lurking in the shadows that we need to worry about?
Well, there's also the psychological factor to think about.
Okay.
Just knowing that your operating system is no longer supported can really create this sense of unease. It's kind of like driving a car that you know needs repairs, but you just keep putting it off. So you might start feeling hesitant to use your computer for certain tasks, especially anything involving like sensitive information.
That feeling of being vulnerable. Yeah, digitally vulnerable.
Yeah.
So we've kind of painted the picture here. Sticking with Windows 10 after the deadline comes with some serious baggage. But what do we do about it? What are our options? Let's break it down. All right, so we've talked about all the scary stuff, the what ifs, but let's talk about what we can actually do about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you know what's the first thing that comes to mind? Upgrading to Windows 11. It's the shiny new thing that Microsoft's pushing. But is it worth it?
Well, I mean, the biggest advantage is that you're going to be on a fully supported operating system. All the latest security updates, all the new features, you've got that redesigned interface, improved performance, even some cool new features like better multitasking, integration with Android apps.
Fancy.
Plus, if your hardware is compatible, the upgrade's free.
$3.99. I like the sound of that. But I do remember when Windows 11 first came out, there was a lot of talk about the system requirements.
Yeah.
And some computers weren't eligible for the upgrade at all. Is that still a thing?
Yeah, that's a good point. Windows 11 does have those stricter hardware requirements than Windows 10, especially when it comes to the processor and a security feature called TPM.
Right.
So if you have an older computer, you'll want to check if it meets those requirements. Microsoft actually has that compatibility checker tool on their website that can tell you if your system's eligible.
Perfect. Put a link in the show notes.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say my computer can handle it. Upgrading to Windows 11, is that going to be like a smooth process, or am I going to pull all my hair out?
For most users, the upgrade process is actually pretty straightforward. You can do it through Windows Update, similar to how you've been getting those updates for Windows 10.
Makes sense.
But it's always a good idea to back up your data before any major system upgrade, just in case.
Just in case something goes wrong. Yeah. Back up your data, everybody. That's important.
Mm.
Okay, but what about the people whose computers can't handle Windows 11? Are they just out of luck?
Not necessarily. Microsoft offers what they call extended security updates, or ESU for short. Yeah, so think of it like a life raft for those who can't or don't want to upgrade to Windows 11 just yet.
Okay, so it's buying some extra time with Windows 10.
Exactly. It provides those critical security updates for a limited time. It does come with a price tag, though.
Okay, how much are we talking?
For individual users, it's about $30 per year, and that'll give you those updates until October 2026.
So, not a permanent fix, but it could be a good temporary solution while you maybe save up for a new computer or figure out what you want to do. What about businesses, though? They must be freaking out a little bit.
Oh, yeah, businesses are definitely sweating this one. For them, the ESU pricing is a bit steeper. It starts at $61 per device for the first year, and then it doubles each year after that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so over 3 years, you're looking at $427 per device.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So businesses have got some big decisions to make. Do they upgrade? Do they pay for those ESUs? Is there something else they can do?
Right. Do they look into some alternative solutions?
Okay, so we've talked about the options within the Windows world. But what if you want to go a completely different route? What if you're just done with Windows? Is that even possible?
You know what? That's a question more people should be asking. It's so easy to get stuck in what we're familiar with. But there are other operating systems out there.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, one that's been gaining a lot of traction is Linux.
Linux.
Yeah, it's been around for decades, but a lot of people think it's super complicated for techie people.
Yeah, for programmers and stuff.
Exactly. But there are actually many different distributions of Linux that are incredibly user-friendly.
Distributions.
Yeah, think of it like this. You've got the base Linux kernel. That's like the foundation. And then different distributions are built on top of that, each with its own interface and features and applications.
So like different flavors of ice cream?
Exactly. You might prefer chocolate while someone else might go for vanilla.
Okay, but if I'm coming from the Windows world, which flavor should I start with?
Two of the most popular choices are Linux Mint and Ubuntu. They both have really intuitive interfaces that are actually pretty similar to Windows. So the transition's not that jarring.
Okay.
Plus, they come preloaded with a bunch of applications for everyday tasks like web browsing, email, office productivity.
So you're not starting from scratch?
Exactly.
Okay, so that's software. But what about my hardware? My printer's so old.
It's a common concern, but generally speaking, Linux has excellent hardware support, and it often works even better with older hardware than Windows.
Really?
Yeah, because it's not as resource intensive, but it's always a good idea to do a little research beforehand.
Yeah, to make sure everything's compatible.
Exactly. A quick Google search should give you the answers you need.
Okay, so what about security? We talked about all the risks with Windows 10. Where does Linux stand on that?
This is where Linux really shines. It's designed with a fundamentally different architecture than Windows, so it's inherently less susceptible to viruses and malware. And because it's open source, when vulnerabilities are discovered, they're patched very quickly by the community.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's like having an army of security experts constantly on guard.
Very cool. So Linux free, secure good with hardware user-friendly. What's the catch?
There are some adjustments you'll have to make. It's a different way of thinking about operating systems, but a lot of people find that the benefits outweigh the challenges.
So it's worth looking into.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've got Linux as a contender here. What about ChromeOS, the one that runs on Chromebooks?
Yes. So ChromeOS is great for people who live in the cloud. If you mostly use your computer for like web browsing, email streaming, basic productivity tasks, ChromeOS is really simple, lightweight, and super secure. Think of it like a souped-up web browser with some extra features.
Okay.
Most of your applications and data live online, so you don't have to worry about backups or storage space on your device.
So perfect for like students or people who are always on the go.
Exactly. And here's a bonus. Remember we talked about those older computers that might not be able to run Windows 11?
Yeah.
Well, Google actually has something called ChromeOS Flex that you can install on existing Windows PCs and Macs.
Really?
Yeah, so it's a great way to give those older machines new life.
And you get to experience ChromeOS.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, so we've got Linux, ChromeOS Flex. This is starting to feel a lot less like a crisis and a lot more like an opportunity.
I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
But we do have to address the elephant in the room. What about the people who are going to stick with Windows 10 no matter what?
Right.
Is that even an option? And if so, what are they risking?
It is technically an option, but as we've been talking about, it comes with some serious risks. Those security vulnerabilities aren't going away. In fact, they're probably going to become more dangerous over time. And as developers focus on newer operating systems, those compatibility issues are only going to get worse. It's like trying to use a rotary phone.
In a world of smartphones.
Exactly. You're going to be missing out on all the cool new features and apps.
Yeah. So Windows 10, it's possible, but maybe not the best idea.
It's like refusing to evacuate a burning building because you're attached to your favorite chair.
At some point, you got to think about your safety. I get it. But let's be real. Some people are going to do it anyway, whether they're stubborn or scared of change or just don't know any better. But what advice would you give to those people?
If you absolutely have to stay on Windows 10, think of it like living in a high-crime neighborhood. You need to take extra precautions to protect yourself.
So we're talking about becoming like security experts.
Well, not exactly. But you need to be super vigilant. First things first, a robust antivirus and anti-malware program. And keep it updated.
Essential.
Absolutely. And be very cautious about what you download and what you click on. Think of every link and every email attachment as a potential trap.
Okay.
And avoid anything that looks suspicious, even if it's from someone you know.
Good point.
Their account could be compromised. And here's another tip. Consider disconnecting from the internet when you're not actively using it.
Really?
Yeah, it limits your exposure to online threats.
It's like locking your doors when you leave the house.
Exactly.
Even if it's just for a little bit.
You're making it much harder for those digital burglars to break in.
Okay, so harm reduction strategies. For the people who are determined to stay on Windows 10. But let's talk about the people who are ready to embrace change. Maybe this is a good thing.
Yeah, change can be a really good thing. It can be a catalyst for growth and new experiences.
I like that. But how can changing to a whole new operating system be a positive thing?
Well, think of it like learning a new skill or a new hobby. It might be challenging at first, but as you get the hang of it, you gain confidence and a sense of accomplishment. And who knows, you might discover a new passion.
Right, so switching to Linux or ChromeOS could be like taking up pottery or learning a new language.
Yeah, exactly. And on a practical level, trying a new operating system can help you learn more about how computers work. You start to understand the different components and how it all fits together.
You might even become the tech person for your family and friends.
Exactly. You can help your grandma set up her new Linux laptop.
Yeah.
Show your friends how to customize their ChromeOS desktop.
So we've got the practical benefits, the learning opportunities, but there's also just the fun of trying something new.
Absolutely.
Right, it's breaking free from the familiar.
It's like traveling to a new country and experiencing a different culture.
I love that. And it just reminds us that we have choices. We don't have to just accept what we're given.
Yeah.
You can find something that works better for us.
This whole Windows 10 thing, it's an opportunity to really think about our relationship with technology.
That's a good point.
What do we need from our computers? What features are important to us? Are there solutions out there that align with our values and our workflows?
These are great questions.
I think so.
And it goes beyond just picking an operating system. It's about taking control of our digital lives.
Exactly.
So as we move into the final part of our deep dive here,
Okay.
I want to encourage everyone listening to embrace this opportunity.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to try something new.
You might be surprised at what you find.
Love that. So stay tuned for part 3. We're going to talk about the practicalities of switching operating systems. And we have special guests who actually made the leap from Windows to Linux.
Very exciting.
He's got some great insights to share. But until then, keep those questions coming. And remember, we're all in this together. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the final part of our deep dive into this whole Windows 10 end-of-life situation. We've covered the risks, the opportunities, different operating systems. But now we want to bring in a real person, someone who actually went through this and made the switch from Windows to Linux.
Yeah, he's been living that Linux life for a while now, and he's got some really great insights to share.
So let's give a warm welcome to guest name, a brief description of the guest's background profession.
Guest name, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So guest name, you were a Windows user for a long time, right?
Oh yeah, years and years.
What was that final straw that made you say, okay, I'm done with Windows, I'm switching to Linux?
You know, I had heard about Linux before, but I always thought it was like, super complicated for programmers.
Yeah.
It's like command line stuff. But when all this news started coming out about Windows 10, I started to worry a little bit. My computer was getting kind of old. And I really didn't want to buy a new one just for Windows 11.
Right.
Plus, it just felt like I was going to be stuck on the same treadmill, just a newer version.
You wanted something different.
Exactly. So I started reading about Linux, and honestly, the more I learned, the more interested I got.
Interesting.
Like a whole new world opening up.
Yeah, exactly.
So you took the plunge. Which distribution did you go with?
I went with Linux Mint.
Linux Mint.
Yeah, I had heard good things about it being user-friendly, especially for people coming from Windows. And it's been great. I gotta say, it's been a really smooth transition.
So you install it, you boot up your computer for the first time. What was that like? Were you intimidated?
Yeah, I mean, it looked different for sure, but it wasn't like a total shock.
Okay.
The layout was familiar enough,
Huh.
and it came with a lot of the programs I already used.
Oh, that's good.
Like a web browser, an Office suite, email, all that.
Yeah, those distributions are designed to be easy to use.
Yeah, makes sense. What about compatibility, though? Did you run into any problems with your printer or other devices?
You know what? That's what surprised me the most. My printer is ancient, and it always gave me trouble with Windows. But with Linux Mint, it just worked.
No way.
Yeah, no drivers, no nothing.
So switching to Linux actually solved some of your tech problems.
It did. It was amazing.
Okay, let's talk about security. We talk a lot about the risks of staying on Windows 10. What's your experience been like with Linux?
Security is the main reason I'm happy I switched.
Really?
Oh, yeah. That's a completely different story. I haven't had a single virus or malware issue since I switched.
That's incredible.
The whole system just feels safer.
Like you can actually relax and not worry about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the community. The people who use and develop Linux are so helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime I have a question, I can find an answer online instantly.
It's like having a built-in tech support team.
Yeah, basically.
So guess name, looking back on it all, was switching to Linux the right move for you?
Honestly, it was one of the best tech decisions I've ever made.
Wow.
Yeah, it's free, it's secure, it's fast, it's customizable. I would recommend it to anyone who's feeling stuck with Windows.
That's great to hear. Thanks for sharing your experience with us, guest name.
Yeah, really appreciate your insights.
Happy to help.
So as we wrap up this episode, let's just recap the main points. First of all, don't panic.
Yeah.
Yes, Microsoft is ending support for Windows 10. But that doesn't mean your computer is useless. You have options.
Yeah, lots of
Upgrading to Windows 11, those extended security updates, or even switching to something new like Linux or ChromeOS.
It all depends on what you need and what you're comfortable with.
Right. The important thing is to be proactive. Don't wait till the last minute. Start exploring your options now. Do your research and make a plan.
And remember, this is about taking control of your digital life, making informed choices. Don't be afraid to try something different.
Exactly. You might be surprised at what you discover. So that's it for our deep dive into the Windows 10 end of life. We hope you found it helpful. If you want more information, check out our website. We've got links to all the resources we mentioned. And as always, we want to hear from you. What are your plans for the end of Windows 10? Let us know. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed,
And keep exploring.